Hey, Starly here. If you're thinking about whether you should go to art school or not, then I hope you will find this video helpful. I was in art school from 2004 to 2008, and it was life-changing for me in some good ways and some bad ways. So I have a lot of mixed feelings about it, and if it was the right path for me. I'll be playing a time-lapse of a recent drawing while I talk here, and I'll leave a link to the full version if you want to check it out after this video. A lot of my art school was around critiques. Every morning of class, we'd hang our assignments on the wall and go around and point out what was working and what was not working. This was able to provide me with a lot of great feedback that helped me improve my work. But somehow there isn't any piece of advice that really sticks out as an aha moment. My progress was very slow. I started out the absolute worst in my class and struggled a lot. It wasn't until my third year that the very basics of what I was learning were finally lodging into my brain and the projects I was working on started looking a bit better. While I learned and improved a lot, I think this is where things also went poorly. When I look back now, I realize just how far behind I was from everyone else, and while my instructors helped a lot, they also failed me in a lot of ways. I was a student who needed much more guidance, much more hand-holding, and to be very bluntly told things. But I wasn't getting that as much as I needed, and the worst piece of advice I got, which I still clearly remember to this day, really shows this failing. I would like to jump right into what it was, but this bit of backstory is very important to know first since it will explain why the advice was as bad as it was. As I mentioned, I struggled a lot. I was really out of my element since it was my first time living away from home, and I was completely on my own. It also doesn't help that when I don't know people, I'm very shy and won't talk to others unless I have to. I also had trouble making new friends, and even though I got along with my classmates and was awed by their work, they weren't really my friends. My friends were back home, and this was before cell phones were widespread. Facebook wasn't really a thing yet. I only really had my live journal to rely on, and that was not really a positive atmosphere. Because of these things, I did suffer a lot mentally. I was immature and didn't know how to take care of myself. So I had a difficult time not only with my schoolwork, but also in my personal life. So for me, having a bit of downtime where I didn't have to think about these things was very important. For studio classes, we would have our laptops with us, and I was absolutely obsessed with a game called Stepmania. It's like a computer version of DDR. My friends and I would call it Tap Tap, since instead of using a dance pad, you would tap the arrow keys on your keyboard. Classes were typically about 5 or 6 hours long with a half-hour lunch break, so during that lunch break, I would put on my headphones and start tapping away. This probably sounds like a tangent now, but it will make sense, I promise. At the very end of every semester, we would have a big review session where we would put all of our work on display, and all the teachers would come around and talk about our work, our progress and improvement areas. I believe the one I'll be talking about was in my third year, so this is when I was just starting to understand what good design even is. I put up all my work. I honestly don't remember if I was feeling proud or disappointed in my work this time. I think I was feeling okay. So the teachers all came in as usual, and I don't remember everything that was said, only the bad advice part. Of course, that's the part that sticks out. After some review, one of the teachers started talking, and this is where it started. That teacher, I can't remember who it was actually, said, "When it's lunchtime, I notice you're playing a game a lot. Maybe instead you could use that time." And that teacher then got cut off by another, and this person I do remember since it was one I really didn't get along with, and they said, "To grow." Right away, I knew that this advice was not good, but now years later, I realize why it was actually just really freaking terrible. I was upset that they singled me out as having to use my half hour of downtime to just work, while all my other classmates would go out to get coffee and lunch. and I couldn't even go out for lunch since I was very poor and couldn't afford a sandwich from the coffee shop. I was struggling so much, so that break was just so important to me to not overload my brain. But they wanted to take that away from me. Well, I'm the type of person that is stubborn to this sort of thing, so I can say I never took that advice and continued doing my own thing during lunch. Now I've realized other reasons why this advice was just so bad. I feel now it really brings to light just how much they failed me. They want me to use my time to just work on things. And what exactly should I have been working on? I would have been sitting in Illustrator just doing something mindless with no direction at all. Would I have actually been learning anything? Would that time have actually made a difference for me? No, it wouldn't have. And the big reason for that is because I needed instructors who would teach me things. I needed that hand-holding. I needed someone who would tell me the obvious things I was missing. So here's a story that is the perfect example of this failing, and this was something I only noticed very recently when I was taking an online tutorial course. That course, by the way, is the one from Colosso.us called Drawing and Coloring Anime-Style Characters by Shion. I will leave a link in the description, but I recommend checking out all of the courses on Colosso since there are a good variety. I believe this was a story from my second year, so when I was still very bad at design, we had an assignment that was a one-day assignment. It was to go to the dollar store next door, buy something, and then redesign it and improve it. I don't remember what I picked, but it was a small, very simple package. I was working on it during class, and I realized as I was working, I struggled a lot with the colors of it. I picked two colors, but they looked very bad, and I just couldn't figure out why. The typeface I chose also looked terrible. It was just all around terrible, and I think I made it look even worse than the original. At the end of the class, the instructor went through each one and would say a comment about it. I don't remember what he said about mine. It was some sort of simple comment, not really critiquing positively or negatively. I knew the design was bad, but I just never knew why I couldn't get it to work. When I took the online course, there's a lot about colors in it. And there was one bit of advice the instructor brings up that instantly solved what I could have done to correct the colors of the packaging. The issue was the colors were way too saturated and competing with each other. So all I needed to do was bring down the saturation of one, and that would have helped it tremendously. The course has a lot more advice than that, so I do recommend checking it out too. And I learned this from someone who works drawing cute anime girls and not the person who had like 40 years of graphic design experience. When I look back on it now, it makes me pretty upset that I wasn't given the advice I really needed. With that worst advice I received, it was like the teachers were putting the blame onto me for why I wasn't improving. But I was the one paying them so that they would give me that advice. I'm the student. I don't know a lot of things, and I'm struggling more than the others. That is why I desperately needed more one-on-one time with my teachers, but I just wasn't getting it. It's hard to look back now and think if the experience was truly worth it for me or not. I really don't want to discourage anyone if they plan to go to art school though. I did learn a lot. I do work as a professional designer now, but I feel the experience could have been so much better and more rewarding if I had known just what I needed to get from my teachers. If I had a better understanding of how I learn and what I needed, I could have communicated that to them and maybe have gotten more of the focus I needed. I also wish that they had recognized that more though, and maybe some of them did, but they just didn't know how to help someone like myself. I'm really curious if the people watching this video are interested in going to art school. Leave a comment telling me if you're thinking of going or if you have and what your experience was. If you want to know more about how I was able to succeed with my art, check out this video. And if you know anyone who is thinking about going to art school but isn't sure, share this video with them. Also leave a like and a subscribe if you enjoyed the story or learned something new. Are you done jingling? Kitty jingles. No. Okay.